I'm Andrew Moran, Liberty Nation's economics editor.
Very, very rocky.
Death by government.
Drain the swamp.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of Liberty Nation's Swamponomics videocast. I'm Andrew Moran, Liberty Nation's economics editor. This week, since the beginning of time, man has yearned to destroy the sun. But President Joe Biden and administration officials will do the next best thing, block it out. Climate change activists in the US government are taking a page out of a Simpsons script and looking at actually blocking out the sun. In President Joe Biden's words, no joke. Has April Fool's Day come early, or is this truly a public policy pursuit the White House is considering? To help us dive deeper into the subject, please welcome the incomparable and fabulous national correspondent for Liberty Nation, Miss Sarah Cowgill, who is also the sunshine of LibertyNation.com. Welcome to the program, Sarah.
Oh, boy. I think I'll just step out now. I mean, I can't compete with that intro. Good grief. Thank you for having me on Swamponomics, the subject I don't understand.
No, I think you do a perfect job. Trust me. If everyone read Sarah's work on Liberty Nation, you will see what I'm talking about.
Are you just trying to show the average guy who really doesn't know squat about economics? Because I might represent that guy perfectly.
Mark Angelides, our managing editor, says the same thing, and he also does an excellent job. I have a lot of faith in my colleagues on Liberty Nation. So let's not bore to death our audience here. So the very first question is, what exactly is the White House's plan about blocking the sun?
Well, this all came down from a congressional mandate that the Biden administration would have to come up with ideas to research how to combat climate change. So this whole first preliminary report is a bunch of geeks, climate change geeks, sitting around, spitballing, oh, let's try this. Well, what if we put mirrors in space? Well, why don't we just block the sun? So, I mean, all this has been going on for months, and they're getting paid to do this. And they've come up with recommendations for further research into the subject. So nothing's really happened other than a bunch of people sitting around coming up with some radical, crazy ideas so far.
And you also forgot they binge watch Simpsons, apparently, because this idea comes straight out, as you wrote, straight out of a Simpsons episode.
It does. And I didn't know that, but Mark Angelides knew that, our managing editor, and our lovely economics guru, Andrew Moran, pointed that out to me and helped me find the episode. And yeah, it was, wow. I mean, are these people just binge watching The Simpsons? Because this is the state. It's right a page right out of that book.
But you know what? It's funny though. I find it interesting is that the ultra rich, they've been supporting a lot of ventures or initiatives actually aimed at blocking the sun. I think it was last year. George Soros, he spoke at some conference and he was saying how one way to lower the temperatures is to brighten the clouds over the Arctic to reflect the sun's energy away from the ice caps. Bill Gates, he backed some Harvard University project to spray calcium carbonate in the atmosphere over the skies of northern Scandinavia. Jeff Bezos, he wants to use Amazon supercomputers to inject sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere. So there's so many solar geoengineering efforts. It's befuddling to me. Lately, not to go too much into opera here, but I've been obsessed with Wagner's Das Rheingold. Now that's not the paramilitary group in Russia. That's the German opera composer.
Right.
And,
right.
In that opera, there's
small difference.
There's something called Enter the Gods into Valhalla, and it's essentially these gods who cross a bridge and enter Valhalla, their new home, and they've slain these other gods, and they summon a storm to clear the air. And then once the clouds part, the gods cross into a bridge and they enter Valhalla. So I can only imagine that these people who advocate these types of ideas, especially the ultra rich, they consider themselves these gods, or like Thomas Sowell said, these people have anointed themselves as these gods. So overall, my question is, do you think these influential folks are actually influencing these public policy ideas, or is just the elites' opulous desires to control the weather? What's going on here? Where are all these ideas coming from?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, when you've got that kind of money, sky's the limit. No pun intended there. But you got to also consider that they're not, for all these endeavors for, the cirrus cloud, what do they call that? Marine cloud brightening, that kind of thing that you briefed over, that those things have impacts that will, take ecosystems out of our world. And, whether you believe in the Big Bang or whatever you believe, every single ecosystem on our planet works together with one another in order to continue this planet functioning. You can't just go, oh, well, why don't we get rid of that ecosystem because it won't matter? And that's irresponsible. This all should be a hard no. Any of these things that would disrupt a life all the way down to the tiniest molecule needs to stop. It needs to be a hard no. And that's where I worry first and foremost. And the second place I worry the most is who couldn't hijack that kind of technology and block the sun for 6 months. Who knows what gets into the people's hands? And that's something that, nature is way better equipped to handle itself than we are to change it.
Yeah, it reminds me of that George Carlin bit when he's talking about environmentalists, and he says, the Earth has been through all this, been through fire, hurricanes, volcanoes, asteroids, all that stuff, and they can just shake us off like a bag of fleas. I remember that was a funny bit. But when you talk about this plan, is this just in the abstract, or is there something being constructed to facilitate it? It's just people gabbing away?
It's the jabbering of progressives, and what it's doing is it's keeping the progressive voter engaged, thinking this administration is really going to do something. But really all they're doing is go, hey, let's put some money into research. That's all they're doing. They haven't, they don't have a plan. They have crazy ideas that they want to flesh out for another year or two. And then if they stay in power, continue to just kick the can down the road. If they don't stay in power, then they can claim, well, we were doing something, and then the conservatives got involved, and now it's all gone to hell.
I can't believe that we can block out the sun to stop climate change. That's my Joe Biden impression for all people who don't know. So you and I talked about this offline, and you also mentioned in your article when I said, okay, so if we block out the sun, will this result in will it achieve the desired end game of, lowering the temperatures? Will that mean that we can get rid of all climate related taxes and spending initiatives? Are you seeing any of that type of commentary out there where, okay, fine, we block out the sun, we achieve our end game of lower temperatures, now we can just stop all of this programs? Or will it just be complementing it where you keep adding it to the layers of all this interventionism?
Oh, Andrew, this is the United States of America. If there's a tax involved, that tax will never go away. It will just be moved along to something else, and we'll just layer upon layer upon layer the next thing. Maybe that's a federal oversight that somebody with a pen at the Oval Office can fix, but I don't think you'll see government ever relinquishing any kind of stream of income.
There's actually, you probably know this one, the famous quote from Milton Friedman that there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program. I don't know if you're
exactly. Yes, you got that straight.
I was curious, though, if there was anybody who addressed that type of concern that I had. And I remember this one environmentalist, I think it was in Time magazine, and the person was writing that, well, if you solar geoengineer, it would create a moral hazard because it would advocate a short-term quick fix solution, and then therefore you'd continuing polluting the planet and continuing using fossil fuels as opposed to maintaining the trajectory of all these renewables. So I guess that's the argument the left would have have, whereby, as we just noted, that it would be a layer of another layer of another layer of addressing climate change. So the Simpsons show might have overstayed its welcome after the 10th season, but it has an extraordinary record of predicting the future. Smartwatches, faulty voter machines, Donald Trump becoming president, and the NSA spying scandal. Is blocking out the sun the next prediction to come true? If the US government or any other country accomplishes this feat, then perhaps it will be time to hand out the first annual Montgomery Burns Award for outstanding achievement in the field of excellence. So I'd like to thank Miss Sarah Calgo for appearing on the Swamponomics videocast, and she's always welcome to come back. Also, be sure to check out my previous interviews on this program with the likes of former Congressman Ron Paul, best-selling author Carol Roth, and economist Stephen Moore. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you everyone for watching.
Don't get caught up in the media madness. Join our movement for free thinking and free speech at libertynation.com. Publishing news and analysis 24/7 with original articles by our team of authors who tell it like it is. Join us each week for online TV shows, The Uprising Podcast, and Liberty Nation Radio. We believe in free thinking and free speech. We are libertynation.com.
I'm Andrew Moran, Ellen's economics correspondent.
Very, very rocking.
Death by government.
Drain the swamp.